Hi, I'm Johnna. I'm a violinist and I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. So my path to becoming a professional musician wasn't always direct and straight. In fact, when I was in college, I was certain that I was going to medical school, so I majored in biology and pre-medical studies, and also majored in music, but it was not performance-based. I had an amazing time meeting so many brilliant people while I was in college, and those experiences only added to my desire to be a musician later in my life, even though I hadn't really realized it at that point. But during college, there were a few years where I did stray away from the idea of wanting to be a professional musician, and I didn't really play very much for a few years. And but somehow I realized that that path wasn't quite for me, and I missed playing violin. It was such a big part of my life since I was 4. And so I then attended Juilliard for my master's degree, and that really was such an incredible experience, getting to play music all the time and so intensely all the time. And I really loved and treasured every moment that I was there, and it transformed my life. And that also led me then to go to Berlin for a year, and where I became very involved in contemporary music and improvisation. And not only that, but putting myself out there in a country that I had never been to, and I had to learn a new language and adapt to a new way of living was just a very challenging yet incredible experience for me as an artist, as a musician. And all the experiences there that I had gained there, I wanted to take back with me to New York. So I became very interested in improvisation while I was at Juilliard, when I picked up violin again. From a very young age, I was immersed in traditional Chinese folk music from my grandfather. And later in life, I was involved in musical theater and had discovered tango, music from Buenos Aires, and of course Piazzolla. And always just discovering music from other cultures was such a big part of my musical experience. And somehow it clicked for me that the way to access all of this amazing music was through improvisation, and that this was a way of communicating that was beyond the Western classical music tradition. Now, at least, and before in the Baroque periods, that was a different type of language than what we're used to now. But so I then began trying it with some friends at Juilliard, and it was just such an incredible experience, not just improvising by myself, but what I call collective improvisation is with a group of people. You react to somebody by looking at their gestures, through listening to their sounds, and just being deeply involved with each other's presence through sound. So I've naturally tried to incorporate improvisation into my teaching method as well. And this goes hand in hand with a rigorous training of technique. Technique being the physical setup of how to play a violin, and all of the great things of learning scales, basic scales, and getting the fingers to go in the right places. And I attended several workshops in the year when I was in Berlin, just using various instruments in a collective and group environment, where each one of us was encouraged to make music together on instruments that were not our own. And this class really changed the way that I approach teaching, and I encourage my students as well to make music not just with an instrument, but with their voices, with their bodies, and sometimes with toys that are easily accessible. And on violin, it's amazing how much kids can improvise with just a few notes that they can learn already. And so even from the beginning stages, as soon as my students learn the basics of posture, and once we can play a few notes, I begin the process of asking them to create their own music. And this is what I consider to be part of the improvisatory process, is that I ask them, oh, can you make up a song for me using the notes on the D string that we have learned today? Or please sing for me a song using the notes that you have learned. Or also getting into composition a little bit is, if you don't feel comfortable immediately improvising, please write something down. Students respond amazingly, especially the younger students who aren't so ingrained in what they can or cannot do with the instrument already, love improvising, and it works very well for them. Older students need a bit more of a nudge, but they are very, very, very capable of composing and improvising as well. So learning the violin is a very physically demanding process for anybody at any age. It takes a lot of patience to get posture right. It takes a lot of time away from the instrument as well, to relax and to think about the things that the teacher has talked about during the lesson, believe it or not. In order to get the most out of violin lessons, I recommend that my students practice a little bit every day. Because it is such a physically demanding instrument, to put it off for a few days and to come back to it is exhausting. And I emphasize postural work so much that I think having that consistency every day really is what's really crucial to developing a really healthy and solid relationship with the instrument. Of course, there is dedication and hard work involved, because it's not going to be a linear path to learning a piece or to a performance. It's always going to be, some days are good, some days are bad. The bad days don't mean that you're not good enough for violin, everything is bad. It doesn't mean that at all. But it takes a lot of courage to realize that ultimately, the more time one spends with the instrument, the more one gets out of it, and the more one loves it and becomes a part of their body. So the only thing that really makes a difference is daily practice and getting really to be involved with one's own body and one's instrument, to see the instrument as an extension of one's body, and to just sit with music a little bit every day is also a deeply, deeply rewarding, meditative, and is something that takes you away from the stress of daily grind of the world, and we all need a little bit of that.